Have you ever wondered what colored eggs have to do with Christ's death? And what Easter rabbits and hot cross buns have to do with Christ's resurrection? And what about the name Easter itself? Do you know its origin and meaning? And what about Easter sunrise services? On Easter morning, millions gather together to watch the rising of the sun. Why? What does it mean? Just how did the Christian world come to accept and celebrate Easter? And where did these customs come from? Easter, what does the name mean? How is it associated with Jesus Christ? Colored eggs? The Easter bunny? Easter egg hunts? Hot cross buns? Easter sunrise services? Why does Easter fall on a different date every year? A Friday crucifixion and a Sunday resurrection? Jesus said that the sign that he was Messiah would be that he would stay in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights. How can we count 3 days and 3 nights from sundown Friday to Sunday morning? Since Easter today is observed as a resurrection festival of Jesus Christ, you might find it amazing that Easter is sometimes observed before Passover, which is the actual day of Jesus' death. Obviously, you can't have a resurrection without a death first. Perhaps you will find it hard to believe, but the observance of Easter is never once commanded in the Bible.
There is no indication of the observance of the Easter festival in the New Testament, Encyclopedia Britannica. The celebration of Easter does not appear in the New Testament, Dictionary of Religion and Ethics.
Some of you might say, now wait a minute, I remember seeing Easter in my King James Bible. Well, it is true that the King James translators placed the word Easter in Acts 12, verse 4, but the Greek word in the manuscript is Pascha, which means Passover. Pascha appears 29 times in the New Testament, and 28 of those times the King James translators rendered it correctly as Passover. The term Pascha means Passover, can be used to include the entire spring festival of the days of unleavened bread. And this is the case in Acts chapter 12. Most Bible scholars agree that the word Easter in the King James is a mistranslation and should be rendered Passover, as it is in most all other Bible versions.
Perhaps there has never been a more absurd translation than in this text in Acts 12, verse 4. Adam Clarke Commentary.
Isn't it amazing that Easter is celebrated by 1 billion Christians worldwide, yet is never once mentioned in the Bible? In fact, that is shocking, but it is true. Instead, Jesus commanded his followers to keep the Passover in remembrance of him.
And when he had taken some bread, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And in the same way he took the cup after they had eaten, saying, "This cup which is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood." Luke chapter 22, verses 19 and 20.
If the name Easter didn't come from the Bible, just where did it come from? And what does it mean? The modern term Easter developed from the Old English word Easter or Easter. Easter was the name of a goddess in Anglo-Saxon paganism. The name itself ultimately derives from east, meaning the direction of east, the rising of the sun. She's called the dawn servant, or one who illuminates, and is closely associated with the pagan goddesses Venus, the dawn star, and Ishtar, the Babylonian mother of heaven, as well as many ancient fertility goddesses. The Egyptian goddess Isis, the Phrygian goddess Sibyl, the Zidonian goddess Astarte, the Greek goddess Artemis, the Germanic goddess Suna, and the mother of them all, Semiramis of Babylon. The concept of the goddess Easter can be traced all the way back to wicked Semiramis, wife of Nimrod, the sworn enemy of God.
The original mother so widely worshipped is believed to be Semiramis, who it is well known was worshipped by the Babylonians and other Eastern nations. The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop.
As civilizations developed after the Great Flood, the worship of Easter spread throughout the ancient world, where she was venerated in almost every segment of society. In the spring, at the vernal equinox, the pagan man sought fertility for himself, his flocks and herds, and his land. He believed that the goddess he worshipped was fertilized by the god he worshipped during this season, in order that she could fertilize the world. Since his life and the lives of his family were dependent upon a bountiful crop and animals which flourished, he sought to ensure success by worshiping this goddess of the spring. Of course, this custom was practiced long before the birth, death, and resurrection of Jesus, which means its roots predated Christianity. The early Christian church never celebrated Easter, but instead obeyed Jesus' commandment to keep the Passover. Easter was not attached to Jesus or his resurrection until hundreds of years later by the Roman Catholic Church.
Every Easter, millions of Christians gather to watch the rising of the sun. This ancient custom probably originated among the Germanic peoples who worshipped Suna, their goddess of the spring. The populace would kneel and beseech Suna, their goddess of the dawn, imploring her to bring back the long-awaited spring days. Suna was the German equivalent of the other ancient sun fertility goddesses such as Eostor and Sibyl. After offering sacrifices to the goddess on Saturday evening, they retired until Sunday morning, when they would gather together to face the east and watch the sunrise. Did you know that even the ancient Israelites began to practice this pagan religious custom?
And behold, at the entrance to the temple of the Lord, about 25 men with their backs to the temple, and their faces toward the east, prostrating themselves eastward toward the sun. He said to me, "Do you see this? Is it too light a thing for the house of Judah to commit the abominations which they have committed here?" Ezekiel chapter 8, verses 16 and 17. The ancient Persians, when they kept the festival of the solar new year, presented each other with colored eggs. Chambers Encyclopedia. From Egypt, these sacred eggs can be distinctly traced to the banks of the Euphrates. The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop. Do you not see what they are doing in the streets of Jerusalem? The children gather wood, and the fathers kindle the fire, and the women knead dough to make cakes for the Queen of Heaven, and they pour out drink offerings to other gods in order to spite me. Jeremiah chapter 7, verses 17 and 18.